How's it going, Jets fans? My name is Alex with my co-host here, Ryan Moran, and it's always fun to talk about an undrafted free agent who kind of comes out of nowhere and makes an impact, and Tony Adams is one of those guys. We also want to discuss the restructuring of CJ Mosley's contract, kind of what's going on there. Jets opening up a little bit more cash flow for themselves as a precaution heading into the season. Always a good move, and CJ Mosley, obviously a staple on this team. He is not going anywhere anytime soon, so I feel like this was probably for the best, but Tony Adams, really exciting young player. The Jets and Robert Saleh have said unbelievable things about him. They really, really like his versatility. They really like how much he's improved since being snagged off the free agent market after the draft. And, we're going to talk about his impact thus far and some good comments and quotes from the coaching staff. But Ryan, let's talk about CJ Mosley's contract first before we do. How you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing great, Alex. Definitely, some busy news there on the, cap front. And, the Jets obviously had to free up some space that was, documented probably after the, roster was trimmed down 53 players. And, the Jets cap space was very tight, even with, the backloading of all the free agent deals they got this year. And, just how that really impacts things come 2023 as well, which, the Jets are already pretty tight up against. So definitely, with CJ, obviously some specifics in terms of, the void years and, really how it impacts, his prorated bonuses over the next few years. And really, just kind of giving a tell on how much longer, he could potentially be a Jet. Obviously, there's been some speculation, with the amount of guaranteed money and all that and, the year he sat out. So definitely some specifics there that, are worth going over for, the Jets in terms of the future salary cap space.
Absolutely. And there's veterans on the team that sometimes you just have to do this with. It's, pretty normal aspect of management from the front office, especially for teams that are looking for a little bit more cash flow. But Mosley's restructure, the cap hit this year drops from $17.5 million to $5.5 million. So they open up a lot of money doing that. Next year, it rises from $18.5 million to $21.5 million. So maybe they build in a void year afterward, and that way they can just kind of get rid of some cap space and push it down the road, especially since they're trying to exercise on Zach Wilson's rookie window right now. So they can release him next year pre-June 1st. They'll free up $6.5 million, and $15 million goes to waste. Post June 1st designation, they free up $17 million, $4.5 mil goes to waste. So essentially, when you designate a player for post June 1st designation, that money just gets spread over a longer period of time. So it kind of just gets pushed to the next year. And it gives you a little bit more flexibility. So that's kind of the situation the Jets put themselves in. Is just like they may have to pay a little bit more down the road, but they free up some flexibility right now, which I think is a benefit to the team. What are your thoughts about this? I imagine they see him as a long-term solution, but is there a thought in your mind where maybe they move on from him after this year? It might be something they're trying to do.
For sure. I mean, it's, they had to do something just because for like right now. I mean, obviously there's a budget you're working against, for the 2022 season. And obviously CJ, was one of the highest paid players on the team. So it's not too surprising. And I certainly think he has a lot to play for this year, in terms of his future with the team. You really hit on the cap numbers there. I think the main takeaway for me is just that they put the 2 void years on, which really spreads out the prorated bonus amounts a little bit more. But, essentially if they cut him, by the 2024 season, those, void years of the prorated bonus money don't really, matter too much. I think the main thing, though, is that if the Jets do go with the post June 1st designation next year, that leads to $10.5 million going to waste in 2024. So there is a trickle down effect, and there's truly, you can try and beat around the bush one way, but it's going to come back to get you and bite you the other way. So it's going to be interesting to see if they just decide to eat all the money up front next year if they release him, or if they, are willing to, backload some of it and wait to, take on the brunt of the dead money in 2024. So that's definitely worth monitoring. Now he ultimately has no guaranteed money on his salary after this year. So that's why I said he is everything to play for. And that cap hit of $21.5 million next year is, pretty significant to say the least. And, while he was good last year, I think, you need to see a lot more splash plays this year, for him to really stick around.
That's absolutely right. Yeah, he kind of had a down year, but again, a lot of players do after coming off significant injuries, right? Like you look at Cooper Kupp, 1 year off, had a decent season, then last year wins the Triple Crown. So, CJ Mosley is a player of his magnitude, a leader, veteran. He understands the system now, been in it 1 year. Of actual like full season sample size of play. And I think that's really a big one for him, is just like bouncing back after a tough year and now feeling a little bit more confident. I kind of get the sense that he will have a pretty solid season for this team. He is very good, and I think that that's something the Jets value. And if he does have a good year, I don't see why you don't keep him around. I mean, of course, that $21.5 million cap hit is a little bit scary. So maybe you don't want to pay a linebacker that much. You could probably go out and get a pretty good one for $10 million and serve a good role as, look at like Blake Martinez, the Giants, when they signed him a 10-year, or rather a 3-year, $30 million deal, $10 million a year. He led the season, or led the league in tackles for like 2 consecutive seasons. And then, of course, the injury last year. But you can get linebackers on the cheap that make a significant impact if they're good scheme fits. So I'm not too concerned about the Jets finding a replacement for Mosley. This is probably his last year for looking at the cap situation seriously. But let's head over to Tony Adams, a guy undrafted free agent out of Illinois, really nice young player. And Robert Saleh, I'll read you a quote from him that really stood out. And this is something that, definitely makes you think Tony Adams could be an impact player moving forward. He said, big credit to TA. Undrafted, he just did a really good job every single day finding ways to get better and better. He's got a bright future ahead of him. I would have been sick if we were to have lost him. An assistant GM, Rex Hogan, said he hopped right in there in OTAs at corner. He was the ultimate team guy because he was brought here to play safety, but I think it really helped him just in terms of his development, being able to see and start out covering half the field, which is really good. Adams is a 23-year-old, both corner and safety out of Illinois, as I said before. He started as a freshman and played 5 years. 4, I guess, plus the COVID season, registered 204 tackles, 6 interceptions, and 11 passes defended in 41 games. This is a guy you want in your squad, someone who can fit different molds. He's not afraid to take on a challenge. He develops quickly. I love players who just take steps forward every single week. And, you're seeing it with guys like Tony Adams. What are your thoughts about him? Obviously a very, very athletic guy, can do a lot of stuff for this defense and maybe one of those underrated players who can make an impact down the stretch.
For sure. I mean, you obviously spoke on it with, his corner experience and really how that kind of gives him, off the bat, some initial ability and coverage at safety, which, the Jets could certainly benefit from. And, outside of Jordan Whitehead, there was really no significant other addition that was made. Obviously, they re-signed LaMarcus Joyner, Will Parks, but, there was a concern and a need really to get 2 starting safeties, which they really couldn't. And Adams was one of the few guys, between, the second and third wave of free agency and the draft, undrafted free agency process. I mean, he was the only guy they came away with aside from Whitehead. So it's definitely encouraging to hear the good things. I mean, pre-draft, this is a guy athletically who tested out of the gym, and it was really highlighted specifically by his explosiveness and just how, good of an athlete he is, and his speed, his quickness. I mean, it's solid. I think really though, the explosion is what, jumps out when you look at the numbers and how he graded pre-draft. And in the preseason, it jumped out to me in the Falcon game. I will say, I thought he had a couple of really good run fits where he held his ground and showed a physicality to his game, an ability to just finish plays and tackle, in the box against the run. And then, you just see some clips on film, and whether it's, like we've obviously spoken on here, the ability to play in coverage man to man with, his experience playing corner. I think you really see that, which is, huge if the Jets could get that from him. And I think you see some speed on tape as well. And, that just really ties back to the athletic ability that he has. So it's definitely encouraging. Obviously, we felt like Will Parks was very deserving of a roster spot. We really liked the potential of Jason Pinnock. But, to really see and hear some of the things that we have about Adams from Saleh, from JD, Rex Hogan, like you said, it's certainly encouraging. And, let's hope that he continues to develop here.
Yeah, one thing that I think is underrated, some guys come into the NFL thinking that they're like hot shit, right? They think like, I know what I'm doing. I'm capable. I don't need support. I don't need help. Tony Adams did the exact opposite of that, right? Instead of saying, I'm this egotistical guy, I am extremely charismatic, I have nothing to learn, he came in and immediately became really good buddies with Jordan Whitehead and LaMarcus Joyner. And I thought that was very interesting because it showcases that he has a lot to learn. He wants to learn. He's making the effort to go out of his way to learn from some of these guys that may and do know better than him. Specifically, he said Joyner and Whitehead are like brothers to me. They really took me in and just watched, and I just watched them. LJ or Jordan, if I need anything, they'll tell me. They're not selfish with information. And Whitehead and Joyner essentially, Whitehead specifically said, I see it every day from getting better, and I just see him in me when I was younger, so I try to help him out as much as I can. And Joyner said from the day he stepped in and just his focus and attention to details has paid off. I mean, you've got a young guy that did not have a clue what the NFL is about every day, and he just watched the guys that did it right until you started to see him develop. And that's interesting to me, right? Like he started to like recognize who on the team he needed to mimic, right? Looking at Jordan Whitehead, just got a big contract in free agency. LaMarcus Joyner, an esteemed veteran on this team, and someone that was like, I'd rather be here than retire. So I think that when you're looking at Tony Adams and the process he's kind of embarked on here, and just learning from these veterans, learning from these solid players who have a lot to teach him, he's done a great job taking the best and leaving the rest. I love that. I love that quote, by the way, just taking the best and leaving the rest. And he did a tremendous job taking all the positive qualities and leaving all the bad ones behind. And that's what sparks development, breaking out of bad habits and getting yourself in a position where you can build on the good ones. And he's done a really solid job doing that. And I think that's a huge bonus to him, turning into a very, very nice player, one that's obviously continuing to learn and adjusting to this NFL life. But, what does that give you in terms of just like, the maturity of a player coming from a UDFA situation to now making tremendous strides and learning from some of these veterans on the team?
For sure. I think what I was going to say is really similar to what you just hit on. I mean, the preparation, I think, is so key, and undrafted free agent rookie, to really come in and, earn the respect of your teammates, I think is a really big thing. And, I guess that really showed up when you look at Salah's comments in particular there. I mean, this is a guy who came in and certainly, outperformed the expectations that were probably in place. And lastly, I think this guy could very well be the third safety and potentially looking at a starting role at some point. I mean, we've talked about, just the concerns with Joyner's availability at his age at this point in his career. I really think, and based on what we heard Joe Douglas say the other day, I think you're really looking at Ashton Davis kind of having a role on special teams, where I think Adams is the primary backup at safety, and it, penciled in as that third player at the group. So you're looking at a guy who, in some dime packages, or, if there is an injury, I mean, he could definitely be thrown in there. And I think based on what you saw in the preseason, like, obviously it's, against lesser competition, it's not going against, starters like he will be in a live game. But I think you got to feel good about some of, Adams' production on tape and just some of his traits, to really continue to develop moving forward.
Absolutely. I'm very excited about his development and growth. So, we'll keep an eye on it. Obviously, if anything kind of develops and matures here, we'll get you guys all the information as always. But I hope you enjoyed this episode of Fireside Jets, taking a look at CJ Mosley's contract restructuring and Tony Adams, who's made a significant impact on the players and fans alike. So really good job by him, and we're excited to continue to watch his development. So if you guys enjoyed the episode, make sure to like and subscribe as always. Enjoy the rest of your day. Have a great weekend, and we'll catch you guys on the next Fireside Jets episode.